German colonial empire before World War I included Pacific colonies like New Guinea and Samoa, Chinese concessions in Qingdao, and African nations like Togo, Namibia, and Tanzania and Cameroon. But even before Germany united in 1871, many were demanding that Germans expand abroad. For instance, in 1865, Baron Karl von der Decken visited southern Somalia and proposed setting up a colony there for the North German Confederation once the Suez Canal was opened. Then, 2 years later, Ernst Friedel argued that Taiwan was only inhabited by pirates and would make a great colony as it would be the center of all Asian trade. And keeping in Asia, when Germany went to war with France in 1870, merchants from Bremen petitioned the government to take parts of Vietnam after the war. And a couple decades later, they also had interest in the Philippines. Well, in 1908, some newspapers said that America were looking to get rid of the islands, and many favored Germany taking over. They said that they preferred the Germans to take over the Philippines rather than Japan, and they said that the Germans were already setting up businesses there, and they also theorized that it would quell any further territorial ambitions. And the Philippines had just been taken by America at the end of the 19th century after the Spanish-American War, and this war sort of put an end to a lot of German territorial ambitions in the Americas. German territorial ambitions in the Americas once again predate the unification of Germany. For instance, in 1850, Hermann Blumenau, working with the Hamburg Colonial Society, set up a small German colony in Santa Catarina in Brazil, and he later advocated large-scale colonization of southern Brazil. Now, the justification for colonizing Brazil was that many Germans had settled in Brazil, set up businesses, and were trading there, but they were no longer benefiting Germany. Plus, in 1867, Friedrich List said that the Brazilian government had betrayed these emigrants. Well, when Kaiser Wilhelm II took over Germany, interest in the Americas grew. For instance, the German ambassador in Mexico said that a German base in Latin America would be more valuable than all of Africa, and Admiral von Tirpitz said that a German base in Brazil was necessary, and military missions were sent all over the continent. For instance, if you look at images of the Chilean army in the 20th century, or even now to be fair, you'll notice that they wear essentially German uniforms, and this is because of the German officers that trained their army in the late 19th and early 20th century. Cuba and Puerto Rico became the focus of German ambition in the Americas, especially after the construction of the Panama Canal. Now, they hoped to curb American influence over all of the Americas and their expansion into the Pacific. After all, Bismarck did say that the Americans were the most fortunate nation on Earth because they were surrounded by weak neighbors and fish. So, to put an end to American expansion in the late 19th century, Tirpitz and Kaiser Wilhelm sent a lieutenant to America to scout out an invasion plan, and he said that the improving German Navy would be able to defeat the American Navy and they would land in Virginia. Once they landed, the ill-disciplined American forces would then retreat and they would sue for peace. But the Spanish-American War broke out shortly afterwards, and the Germans were convinced that guerrillas in the Philippines could defeat the Americans, and they could also sort of swoop in by promising aid and support to the Filipinos. However, nothing really came of this besides a little bit of aid, and the Americans were able to annex the Philippines and Puerto Rico and bring Cuba under its influence. So another invasion plan was made. The plan would see around 100,000 men and 60 warships cross the Atlantic and bombard New York while troops landed in Boston. But von Schlieffen said that more men were needed to take New York, and many said that Cuba needed to be taken first. The invasion plan was made during the early 20th century, however by then the American Navy had greatly improved, and during the Venezuela crisis of 1902 they used this navy to challenge the European powers. Then the British entered into an alliance with France and Russia, and Germany's focus shifted back to Europe. However, for a while these invasion plans were taken seriously, and had they worked, the Americans could have been severely weakened and Germany could have taken a few more colonies.